Welcome to class B. The previous class we have studied about deforestation and its consequences, and we have also seen a number of definitions like wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, and we have spoken about the biosphere, right? So let us today learn about the biosphere reserves. So what do you mean by a biosphere reserve? A biosphere reserves, they protect the biodiversity. They protect the biodiversity or conserve biodiversity. Now what do you mean? What do you mean by biodiversity? Yes, biodiversity has a wide variety of plants, animals and microorganisms. A wide variety of plants, animals and microorganisms. Say like these biosphere reserves which are present, they protect this biodiversity along with the culture in that particular area, right? And these biodiversity spheres are sometimes they can have more than one or two protected areas in their reserves. So when you take example of Pachmahari Biosphere Reserve, when you talk about Pachmahari Biosphere Reserve, it has two protected areas within its zone, like Satpura National Park, Bori and Pachmahari Wildlife Sanctuaries. So these are the protected areas which are seen in the under Biosphere Reserves. Biosphere Reserves. And then next, when you talk about the flora and fauna, so in the initially when I began the lesson, I told you the plants and animals, the plants are called as flora and the animals are called as fauna, right? So this flora and fauna are nothing but the plants and animals which are present in a particular area. Say like in your area there are few plants and animals. So these plants and animals which belong to your area are said to be flora and fauna. Flora and fauna. So next, let us talk about endemic species. When we say like endemic species, even before I start with endemic species, let me tell you what species are. Species means a group of population which can interbreed, which can reproduce and increase the population by interbreeding. Say like you can tell, I'll give you an example, like a group of a cat population, right? So they try to increase their population by interbreeding among themselves. That means they breed with their own species. It's not that the cat goes and breeds with a dog, right? So they breed within their species so that they can increase the population and there could be a race of, there could be a continuity of the race, right? So in the same way, the species word is not only termed for animals, it can also be termed for plants and humans. So we are also human species. In the same way, there are plant species. So now you have understood like what species is. What species is. Now let us talk about the endemic species. So the plants and animals which are found exclusively in a particular area are said to be endemic species. Now I'll tell you what are those. See, we might have observed only squirrels around us. Nowadays we rarely find these animals, right? These species, because they are becoming extinct day by day. So if you have seen a squirrel, you might have seen it like it is very small with a short tail. But when you talk about a giant squirrel, have you ever heard that there is a giant squirrel? Yes, there are giant squirrels which belong to a particular area, right? And these giant squirrels have a long fluffy tail, And these giant squirrels are not seen everywhere, and they are you can say they are only confined to a particular region. So such a species which are confined to a particular area are said to be endemic species. So let us take examples of flora which are endemic species like salwood and wild mango tree. At the same time, when you talk about fauna, it is bison and giant squirrel. Bison and giant squirrel. Do you know that these endemic species which are present, they can one day become extinct? Now, how do they become extinct and why should they become extinct? Yes, I'll tell you. As I've told you, in previous classes we have discussed that population is a major threat, I can say, to the biosphere, right? As the population is increasing day by day, we have to cut down the trees for constructing houses, right? So that means, where do you cut down the trees? There is no more place left over. So you try to poach the forest. You cut down the trees, right, in the forest so that you can convert it into a land for cultivation or a place for building or constructions, right? So when you're doing this, that means you are destroying the natural habitat of species. Natural habitat of species. So when the natural habitat of these species is destroyed, what happens? Then definitely they become extinct. They become extinct because there is no home left for them to live in. So obviously they try to go to different places where they may not be able to adapt to the climatic changes. So ultimately they die and become extinct. So this is how actually you can say this endemic species are endangered. So now what are these wildlife sanctuaries? The wildlife means, you know what wildlife is, right? So these sanctuaries are those areas, the protected areas for the wildlife. They provide protection and suitable living conditions to wildlife. Okay, they provide protection and suitable living conditions for wild animals, or you can say wildlife, to wild animals. You know what wild animals are, right? So what is the purpose of wildlife sanctuaries? What is the purpose of establishing wildlife sanctuaries? Yes, these wildlife sanctuaries, they provide protection and suitable living conditions for many of the wild animals. You see that these places are usually protected from poachers. Poachers means the persons who go and kill the animals. Poachers are those people who go and kill the animals. So these areas are actually protected from the poachers, and they strictly follow the rules. They don't allow any of the poacher to enter into these reserved areas and kill the animals Now we know that though these wildlife sanctuaries are set up, though there are set of rules which have come up to protect these animals, still there are neighborhood people which are living in the nearby villages. They encroach these reserved areas and kill animals, encroach these reserve areas and destroy them. So though we know that these wildlife sanctuaries are the places which can protect the wild animals, but there are some neighborhood villagers, like see around the reserve, it is not that they are confined to a particular place and there is no other village surrounding it, right? It is not like that. So the sanctuaries are surrounded by nearby villages. So what does these people in the nearby villages do? They encroach these places and then they try to kill the wildlife, So that is how slowly the animals which are present are getting extinct day by day. So please stop killing animals. Then next, let us learn about national parks. Now, before I start with national parks, I have a question, like how many of you have visited zoo? Right. See, when we were in primary classes, we might have gone out on a field trip from the school, or your parents might have you taken to the zoo, or you can say zoological park, right, where you see a wide variety of animals living there. Now what are these national parks meant for? Right, these national parks are large and diverse enough to protect large sets of ecosystems. So as we talk about the national parks, these are the places which protect whole set of ecosystems, right? When you talk about ecosystem, this ecosystem consists of plants, and animals, landscapes and historical objects. So these national parks are well known to protect these set of ecosystems which has different aspects in it. Like when you take example of Satpura National Park. So this was the first recorded national park, Satpura National Park. The Satpura National Park is the first reserve national park of India, and the finest teak wood is found in this place. And you see that this Satpura National Park is has rock shelters in it. There are rock shelters found inside this Satpura National Park, which will tell us about the life of primitive man. Okay, the life of primitive man. You know who are primitive people, right? So the prehistoric human life. So these rock shelters which are present in the Satpura National Park will give the evidences of prehistoric human life. At the same time, you can see how the primitive man sustained during those eras. At the same time, there were 55 rock shelters being found. Okay, 55 rock shelters were being found along with the rock paintings, which give the evidences of historical objects, and these were being identified in Pachmahari Biosphere Reserve. And you can see, this is how you can know the evidences of our prehistoric people or prehistoric humans. So this Satpura National Park is the one which will help us to understand the life of a primitive man, So as you go on, you can also find out Satpura Tiger Reserves. So what are these tiger reserves? As Project Tigers, this government has started up a campaign to protect the tigers. So every year there is a National Tiger Conservation Day, right, where they try to protect the tigers which are living in a particular say like wildlife sanctuary or national parks, and the main objective is to have an effective survival of these tigers, at the same time to maintain the population of the tigers. So the main motto behind the Project Tiger is to protect the life of tigers, that means to make them survive, and at the same time to increase the population of the tigers. We all know that the population of tigers in India is slowly decreasing. Not only population of tigers, there are many other animals whose population is gradually decreasing in number. Right, but National Satpura Tiger Park is considered to be one of the best park because it has helped in survival of the tigers. At the same time, the population of the tigers was also improved or increased. So once upon a time, it was like elephants and then wild buffaloes, barasingas. Okay, so apart from these tigers in Satpura National Park, there were also elephants, wild buffaloes, barasingas, which started slowly diminishing. And such species which reduce in number day by day are said to be endangered species. That means they are into a danger zone where the population of that particular species may disappear after few days. See, if I keep telling you about these disappearance, you might have got an idea about a dinosaur, right? So you all might have seen the movie Jurassic Park, which was actually about the life of dinosaurs and how the destruction has happened during that dinosaur era, right? So do we find dinosaurs nowadays? Obviously we don't find dinosaurs, right? So they were so huge, giant lizards. Actually they were also called as giant lizards. Okay, but these dinosaurs gradually diminished with the evolution of Earth, right? So in the same way, if we keep hunting for animals, if we encroach them, if we poach them, then one fine day you see that the animals which are present right now may become endangered species, and the future generations can only see the pictures of the animals but not the animals alive, right? So see, nowadays the birds which are present, small sparrows, right? The sparrows almost became extinct nowadays. You know what is the reason behind the sparrows becoming extinct? Yes, that is extensive use of technology. Let me tell you how. Yes, we deliberately use our 4G SIMs, right? And we are least bothered about the radiations which are emitted due to the usage of this 4G and 3G or whatever data connections you have at home. So these radiations which are emitted, where do they go? They are released into the atmosphere, and due to this high radiation frequencies, the sparrows became extinct after the after the forms of networks have started developing. You can say that as there is a competition between one firm and the other firm, you see that if one is providing 2G, the other network provides 3G. If one is providing 3G, the other network may provide the fastest 4G. So when you have internet on your fingertips, like within seconds, when you just on your mobile data and just look for something, search for something, you immediately get the information. That is because the high frequency bands which will help you to get the data, right? So that means you are utilizing internet or whatever. So in turn, what are you doing? You're emitting the radiations which are harmful and which are endangering the life of many of the species. So this is also one of the causes, but I cannot say that we cannot use mobiles because we are so addicted to it. That is what I wanted to convey. Small animals are more prone to endanger. But whereas the huge animals, they are not endangered. Say like we know that the number of elephants is less in India, but they are not becoming endangered species because they can still sustain. But whereas the small animals like sparrows, they die immediately due to high radiations, right? So this is how you can say that because of our deeds, you see that the animals are becoming extinct. See, sometimes we kill small animals like rats or lizards or small things which enter into our house ruthlessly, right? We may not know that by killing them we are harming ourselves, right? Let me tell you. See, these small animals also play a vital role in the ecosystem because they are part of food chain and food webs. So if the population of these small animals is disturbed, then definitely there would be a great disturbance which is caused in the food chain or a food web. So now when you're talking about an ecosystem, what is an ecosystem? Ecosystem is nothing but which is made up of plants, animals and microorganisms, right? An ecosystem is nothing but which is made up of plants, animals and microorganisms in that particular area. And you can also, they also include non-living organisms such as like climate, river delta, soil, right? So that means whole of this ecosystem get disturbed even if one link in the chain gets disturbed. See, you might be wearing a gold chain or some pendant or say like some accessory. Let me give you an example. See, you might be wearing a gold chain or say some accessory, and if one of the link gets detached, will you be able to wear the accessory or use the accessory until it is mended? No, you cannot use it. In the same way, if there is a slight disturbance in the food chain, if one of the link gets detached, you'll not be able to continue with the food chain. You may not be able to see the food chain happening in a normal way, but there is no mending process seen naturally, right? We cannot mend the things naturally. We are not the ones to take up the place of an owl or take up the place of rat or take up the place of lizard or take up the place of cat. But whereas you can mend your ornaments and then wear, but you cannot mend the things which are lost in the ecosystem. So please ensure that you are not disturbing the ecosystem by killing the animals.